Well, welcome to Nifty Campus podcast episode 4. Today I have Sergeant Retired PMed Greg Price from the Canadian Forces. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, how are you? How's it going today?
Not bad, man. I'm really glad to have you on this podcast today, man. I know we've been trying to have it and get it going for a few months now, and we're both living pretty busy lives. So I'm glad we finally were able to do this and talk about who you are and where you're from and your experiences and some of the things that you're working on now and plans moving forward in the future. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about who Greg is?
Yeah. This has been kind of cool. I have to admit, this is my first online podcast. So forgive me for the stumbling through this if it even sounds like that, but I hope it'll go smoothly. My name is Greg Price. I was in the military for about 16 and a half years. I joined in 2000, prior to 9/11. So to give an idea of the culture change when that kind of came about. I didn't think I was going to join the military, to be honest. I thought I was going to be a graphic designer or a police officer or something else. My parents didn't have a ton of money for college or whatever, and it was something that my family had been in, my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my uncle, who I'm very close to. So basically, to end up being a medic and then a PMed in the Canadian Forces was not on my bingo sheet, so to speak. At about, I would have been 19, 20, ended up at the recruiting center. Everyone goes, man, why'd you choose medic? Because that's what they shoved across the table at me, and it sounded better than MP. And there were more girls in the trade, to be honest. So that was a consideration. But
yes, there were.
that was one of the perks. I guess that was proposed to me. Joking. When I got in, I guess I was just a whirlwind. Like, I was having this conversation with my wife the other night, just sitting here, and I said, it's funny, like I ended up at the medical services school, doing anatomy and physiology and things like this, like maybe 8 months after my basic training, because we were on a bit of a holding platoon, and I ended up on this course, and she's like, why were you interested in that at all? I was like, hell no, like not at all, like not even in the slightest. Here I am reading these books and, doing Korean War medicine at the time. And basically, and I'm just like, what am I doing? But she's like, well, how did you follow it through? Like, does it have to be something you're super interested in? And I was like, well, at that point, there was nothing it checked off, making less money than I was making at this moving company in the summers and stuff. It was a huge pay cut. Secondly, not something I'd ever been interested in, not at the least bit artistic or creative. And 3, just like a disciplinary overtone, right? So you have these like instructors and stuff yelling at you all the time, PT and so on. But I look back on it and I just go, like, what drove me through the training? I did really well on it. What drove me through to that, and then to continue this career for another 15 odd years. It's just weird, the more I think back on it now, I think it's it's funny. It's just like a euphemism for life. Like, it's not always what you think you're going to be doing at that moment, who you think you are at that point of your moment, or what you think's best for you, or what meets those exact criteria all the time. It's like just some unknown force, but I don't regret a minute of it.
I can relate to that a little bit. Like, I never would have thought 5 years ago that I would be helping people learn how to get into blockchain and start my own school and campus with my wife, and now doing coaching almost every day on the topic. Like, I get it, right? But carry on.
Weird. It's funny. Like to give you a bit more, I joined in Borden, obviously. So I was at the medical services school, and then I was posted. I'm from Barrie, that area, so that was kind of nice to be down there. And then I got posted to Meaford, and first thing I said was, "Where the fuck is Meaford?" Sorry to insert my language. Where the hell is Meaford?
Yeah, no, it's all good,
so that was a little training base up by Owen Sound, Ontario, where the Royal Canadian Regiment trains or does their basic training for infantry. So anyways, I ended up there for 8 years, and it ended up being great posting. Got a lot of experience there. And then about the end of that time, I was kind of thinking of doing something a little different, maybe specializing, because there were some good opportunities, and preventive medicine was one of them. So medic's like a trade in itself, and then there's some things you can do with some offshoots of that, similar to some other trades. But primarily, if you stayed in the medical vein at that time, you'd be a physician's assistant, which I thought was great. Like, I love being a medic. I love the clinical aspect of it. But it just so happened, just like another one of these random occurrences, a buddy of mine who was on my QL5 course, or my second medic course, was changing to PMed. So I said, what do they do? And everyone gives you this, I think it's like, because they wouldn't be going there unless they thought it was. So he's like, oh man, you're just going to do inspections. It'll be great. You got a great office. It's like the postings are way better, blah, blah. So it didn't take me much to I don't know, trade over. Like I wasn't like something I thought about for months in my head and wrote a pros and cons sheet on. I just kind of went and did it. And next thing you know, I'm inspecting freaking base facilities and stuff like this. And I liked it. It was cool. I had got to say, I did miss some of the more fieldy stuff of the medic stuff. Not the training X's in the winter and stuff, but I honestly, I liked it. It was pretty cerebral. There was a lot of things I'd never even thought I'd be doing, like math and chemistry. So basically first I was a medic 8 years, basically a combat medic. You work in the clinics and then you sometimes go out with the troops. That's pretty straightforward. But preventive medicine is kind of an all-encompassing job that looks after the healthcare and the hygiene and then further on safety of people in the military. So I did that, did my courses for PMed, graduated that, started doing the PMed work, got posted to Petawawa. Like the pretty much the one place that everyone wants to
which is where I met you, Greg. Yeah.
Exactly. So hey, if I hadn't have gone there, we wouldn't be talking today. So it's like our destiny, but maybe but yeah, so anyways, I ended up in Petawawa, working at 2 field ambulance there in the clinic, basically doing the base inspections and so on, and that's where I got to deploy from. So I actually deployed as a PMed in 2010. It was basically that whole year with the workup training and everything, but deployed in 2010 from around the start of the year till December of that year.
And where did you deploy to, Greg?
I deployed to Afghanistan. So it was a Roto 9 called Roto 110. We were just talking about this. It's hard to put them all together sometimes, but yeah, Roto 110, Roto 9, or Task Force 110, Roto 9. It was kind of a good tour. I mean, in my case, I wasn't, like a frontline combative by any means, but I did get one really unique perspective of the conflict and what we were doing there, because I sort of had the obligation to go out and put eyes on a lot of the locations that we were in. So I visited something like, I think when I last counted, and this is years ago, probably like 65, 70 locations, including, main bases like Kandahar, the Fob Wilson, you had FOBs and then COPs, and then sometimes just the outposts. So, wow. And these different AOs, so kind of all over. So that was something that I found really interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, just hearing some of those names, I've been to Fob Wilson and I've been to some of those combat outposts, and I have a memory of being at Petawawa and going into PMed to get my water buffalo inspected and nice. Seeing you there and being excited, because
somebody's got to do it.
We used to work together in the main unit, and then when you moved over to the office over there, that's when I would get to see you, right? And
it's funny, man. I'm having flashbacks to super chlorinating water buffaloes now.
Yeah, I have flashbacks. So your flashbacks are inspecting. Mine are driving around, getting them swooshed around, and then emptying them out, right? So
it's funny, all these little jobs, I look back, just like I said before, you look back and you're like, man, did that interest me at all? Did I see myself as spraying at sea containers and doing water buffalo checks, or walking around a kitchen telling, the cook who's been there for 20 years, what he should be doing for health and safety? No, not at all. But here we are.
Exactly.
So, fast forward beyond that, we could get back into the tour stuff in a bit, but I went on tour, came back to Petawawa, and basically spent the rest of my career there. Right around 2 years before I got out, so this would be like 2014, I went on my QL6s, which is like your secondary course for PMed, to be the sergeant warrant rank. At that point, you do occupational health and safety. So I went and did the Ryerson University curriculum for that, and basically ended up as an occupational health and safety person. So that changes my job from the sanitization and hygiene aspect to more like hearing surveys, environmental, industrial environmental stuff. So I did that for the last 2 years. And the last year and a half I was there, I was transferred to one Canadian field hospital, which is our largest deployable field hospital we have, the one we send to, Haiti and things after the earthquake. So basically, I was there for about a year and a half doing PMed stuff for them, but also doing some in-house stuff, like managing some people that work there as well. So that was kind of interesting. And then pretty much right from there in 2015, 2016, I had started the ball rolling on getting out of the military, and we can get into exactly how that occurred. But I was subsequently released medically, so a full 3B release with a full medical go. Had to fight for that a bit, moving past that, but I've been retired, as it were, and this is a crazy thing for most people there since I was about 35. from 2016 onwards. So what am I now? Like it's almost 10 years I've been retired. So
Good for
pretty
you,
wild.
man. Yeah. So that must that must not have been a very easy transition, going from go on an army base for so long, and then going on mission, inspecting combat outposts and forward operating bases, to coming home and then transitioning to Greg, no longer
Yeah.
Sergeant Price. That can't always be an easy thing, and I'm sure there are a lot of veterans currently right now going through the same thing. I'm one of them, right? And I've talked about that a little bit in previous podcasts. But yeah, I can relate. And if you'd like to share, those experiences and what that's like, and maybe some advice for, a brother or sister who's in arms right now, who might be transitioning out of the military.
I think the thing about the transitioning is, like, first we have to realize that everyone's different. There are people out there that, for me, I love being in the military. I had a lot of friends in the military. It was a very huge part of my identity in my life, but it wasn't the be all and end all. It never was. I was always the kind of guy, like, service before self, but not if there's, kids and a wife.
But if Bitcoin goes to 100 grand, no, I'm just kidding.
Service before self, but there's some things, so I go. But there are some guys, and I'm not saying it's not just the dedication piece. It's the, and I'm not saying that I wasn't dedicated. It's like there's a lot of guys out there and girls too, whoever, it's that their whole identity is being that person. It's wearing the green. It's the only thing that makes them kind of who they are. So it's kind of like when they take off the uniform, it's still there, Whereas with me, when I took the uniform off at 4 p.m., pretty much just Greg, so getting out of the military for me from that transition angle wasn't probably as difficult as some other people. However, what I do find and it's funny because it still comes to me now, was like, the military, as much as it is like, get your shit together, one man, one kit, it also is like a pretty good babysitting thing. Hey, you need a dental appointment? Well, hey, just go over to our free dental clinic and they'll book you one tomorrow morning. You need an MRI. It's going to be a week from now. Hey, you got something wrong with your pay? Hey, just come in and fix it. Oh, your taxes, will adjust that, So getting out and having to do all that stuff by yourself is ominous, and I'm pretty handy, but I, still this day, like just this year, and I still have pretty good dental benefits. I go to the dentist and I'm like, wait, you're just not just going to fix my teeth for free? It's $3,000 for a crown. I'm like, and you can't, when are you going to be able to get me in 3 months from now? Like my tooth sorting, I'm like, and that's just a very small tip of the iceberg. So I think a lot of people, like they're, and some of these people, like, the higher you get, you're a chief or something, you're 30 years, as much as you pound your chest and say, like, I'm in charge, it's like, yeah, but you're also get things walked along. You have a secretary, people that take care of stuff for you. Hey, you need a plane ticket to go on this course or whatever. It's done. Sure. You get out and you're very much just in this whirlwind of like, now I got to figure everything out on my own. And I mean, there's the whole piece that we'll probably get into too about, now what do I do? Am I getting out medically where I need to go and, and sometimes in your kind of, especially with medical stuff and sometimes mental health stuff, you're in this like vortex, and then you're like, oh, hey, prove to us you need the money to do this, or you need the money to be retired, or you need the money to pay your bills. Prove to us you're this disabled. So there's a lot of different facets to the transition, and I'm still like recognizing some of them 10 years after the fact.
Right.
So for me, yeah, hard. When I got out, to be honest, when I first got out, it was just kind of like a breath of fresh air. I'd been on the joint personnel holding whatever for like a couple months before that. So I basically was just, coming in every Friday, waving and saying goodbye. So I was pretty much used to, not having something to do. And when I first got out, it was like I had semi-recently gone through a divorce. I just met my wife. And basically, I was doing a lot of fun stuff. I just moved back to Barrie, to my hometown. I was doing really well in my investments, which we'll get into later. I was skiing every day in the winter. I was doing a lot of stuff. I was really keeping myself busy. And I thought, hey, this is exactly what retirement's going to be. This is the Freedom 55 commercial, But I think in some ways I was just trying to compensate, like to try to make myself feel like it was going to be that forever. And it's kind of more balanced.
Yeah. Scotiabank, you're richer than you think.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah. She's like, don't go. What's that recent commercial? She's sitting there with the girl and she's like, don't let them tell you about all the things you should have. Let's figure it out today. And she's like in this little office, like, sometimes you're not richer than you think, but, So when I first got out, I was doing a lot of this stuff, and we'll probably get into later. I kind of did really well in this the weed stocks at the time. So, I had, and I probably burned more money than I should have, but I had some money to burn, and it was just like fresh living in Barrie. It's funny, like fast forward to just recently in the last year, my father, who's in his late 60s, mid to late 60s, he just retired from, he was a mechanical design draftsman for 30 years. He just retired. Now and he calls me. He's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
He's like, what do I do with my life? He's like, he lives in a condo in Mississauga. And I'm like, bro, you got to find yourself something to do. Like you really, and it's not just like, you're not going to go sailing every day. You're not going to go fishing every day. You're not going to golf every day. Like it's very, very important that you manage a routine and you get back to some sense of normalcy, because you're such a routine animal, particularly with guys in the military. It's like, you're such a routine animal. You're so used to getting told what to do. And it's actually very simple to be told what to do all the time. It's not that hard. It's like, It might suck. You might not like what they're saying, but it's actually simple. Yeah. Hey, what do I do today? Hey, this exact thing, This is how you do it. It's like, but that people miss that, right? So they get out. And like I said at the very start, it's like, everyone's different. So how people mitigate and manage that moving forward after they get out is really different. And then topple on top of that, the mental health issues that some people have, the physical health issues, socioeconomic issues, divorces, bankruptcies, custody battles, right? So I think there's a lot of facets at play there.
I think one of the hardest things for military families to get out of is, like you said, that economical issue. And it's because we're such in a bubble and we're not taught much more than our trade, our job, which, rightfully so. We have an important job to do. It's like when you get out of here, it's like, man, no tools, no resources anymore, and no real plan, and then that's, I find families are trying to figure it out when it's too late, So how was it for you that you were able to not end up like, unfortunately, like I would say 75 to 80% of most military families when they release from the military?
For sure. I think both you and I, being in the military as long as we have, we've seen people in the military who've managed their money properly. And I'm not to say like some of those people have some kind of, I won't say privilege, I hate that word. I'd say opportunities, because they were both master warrant officers. They moved around from place to place. Maybe they had a PMQ for 15 years. That was a really good price. I think that, there's a lot of things at play with this too. It's like cost of living in certain places, getting PLD. Some of these people took the opportunity when they moved and the government covered their housing to go buy additional properties, but that is not the norm. So that's probably the floating skim of the top.
We're talking about 1%. Like a 10%. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly, maybe even, right? And it's like, it's a great job if you have two, senior NCOs in the same house, you don't carry a mountain of debt. I mean, that's a considerable amount of money these days. That's 200,000 upwards, right? Yeah. So it's like, and if your kids have base amenities, being in the military is actually pretty cost effective. But another thing that comes with it, because from a young age, and I'll use this exact example because it's pretty funny. When I first moved to Petawawa, I was staying in the shacks for a while because we were building a house at the time, and I'm in the shacks, and I ended up going to Canex. I remember Canex used to have the 0% plan. You could just buy whatever, and it would show you on like a little tag. It'd be like, this 75-inch TV is either $200 every month, or it's $18 a month for the next 96 months, or whatever. No interest, right? Yeah. And I was like, holy crap! I was like, man, I kind of wanted something. I remember it was a TV or something. So it's like, wicked, just take it off my pay. You barely notice it. And as I'm standing there, these two guys are there, and they're brand new guys to RCR, and they're like 19, 20. And they're there right out of battle school, and they're basically standing there, and they're like, well, how much can we get? The lady's like, well, you get pre-approved for $7,500 each, right? And I shit you not, they bought two identical TV setups with two Xboxes at the time. I think it was like Xbox 360 at the time, and two identical like gaming couches with the LED cup holders facing two different walls in their PMQ or in their room. And I was like, and I think they maxed them out. He's like, I want to buy my mom a vacuum.
They're probably still there, Greg. They're probably still there, man.
Well, maybe, but I think it's quite possible. Like these, it's just some people. The military does afford you that ability to screw up your finances too. And topple on top of that, being away all the time, it's no secret that the divorce rate's like, significantly higher in the military. So all these things that kind of come along at different parts of your career. And one thing you never really have to think about too much is like job security and things like that. So you tend to spend a little differently, don't tend to stockpile things away. But so with me, When I got out, I mean, I'm by no means like, the wealthiest person on earth, but I'm very fortunate, and I will start with that I do get a pretty substantial, if you want to call it medical release pay from the military. It definitely covers my bills. Less and less so with inflation now. You're starting to see like even a considerable amount of money isn't quite what it was a couple of years ago. But when I got out, I've always kind of been a bit of a hustler, trying to make dollars from anything. And I got out and I started investing in my TFSA. And it was right during the pot stock thing. I think I took like $6,000 and put it in my TFSA and just put it on like Canopy Growth. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I just figured out how to do the TFSA and how to log in and everything. It was like, the 15 digit.
Just right.
And I said to my wife, I woke up the next morning, I had like $12,000. I was like, I am the Wolf of Wall Street. I am the most genius investor ever. I'm like, my wife, like I'm showing her, I'm like, oh my God. So, and it kind of carried on like that. Like for the next couple of weeks, you could just go on. I remember that post. Yeah. It was similar to like when crypto has different times. Crypto has become a little more, I'd say a little more mainstream now and a little less speculative, but it's like with the pot stocks, it was like any day, this company's going to do something, they're going to get some announcement. So it was like buy the rumor, sell the news every day. And at one point I'm on the ski hill and I got some friends in on it too. One of my friends, Dave, he'd like the shout out, but he turned like, maybe a small amount into quite a big amount. I'm talking like six digits or more. And he says to me, like in the morning, we're on our phones now. We're trading on my TFSA on my phone. And I mean, I could put my password in my pocket in my snow pants, like at this point. Yeah. But I was literally trading. Like I was still such an idiot. Like I literally was trading like, sell it market, stuff like that. Like I wasn't putting set stop points. So I was probably trickling off on like a $20,000 trade. I was probably trickling off. I remember one time I hit and I lost like $5,000, like just like that. Just went, oops. Like I've done, and I had no idea why I was trading. I was trading completely based on ridiculous fundamentals,
Right.
So that came about, and I squandered most of that to be honest. I did. I squandered. Like I could have had, I literally could have had millions and millions, but I did fine. I mean, I put it into things that I own, and I had a lot of fun. But I didn't. I wasn't really looking for it, and I'm a victim too of the idea of like, consistent money. In my case, I've got this pension that's kind of a lifelong pension, not till I'm 65, like till I die. And then I think my kids get some after. Yeah. It's like, it's a lot easier to look at your month and be like, I hate to use the word privilege again, but it is a privilege to me to have
it's not a privilege, Greg. You work for that shit, bro. You did 16 years for your country. So it's not a privilege. You're getting.
Sometimes I have a bit of like an imposter syndrome when it comes to that.
No.
Thing, but it's funny, like, it's not lost. I mean, even some of my friends I have quite a few successful friends, financially successful friends in business and stuff. And they're just like, man, like that's the best gig ever. Like, you don't even have to think about like, on the 30th, it just always comes in. And I was like, and to me, it's just kind of been that way since 2000, essentially, far less money. Right. So I think in my case, like, I'm not a person who's stockpiling RSPs away. I'm thinking like my wife's looking at that now because she's not military, but I'm like, I really don't kind of have to. Yeah. I'd rather play, I'm looking at these, put your money in here and it's going to give you 7 to 10% at the best you could hope for. And then by the time you go to take it out, because I'm making this other pension money, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to take it out on a RIF, and they're going to tax me half of money I was already like.
Yeah, an RSP is a financial wealth destroyer. So, we could talk about that later, but I would be coaching your wife to maybe look at other programs,
For sure. I think she's a little skeptical of the stock markets and stuff. The risk is high,
that's what your RSP is doing, right? It's going into the stock market. So
mind you, like much more hedged bets.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
But I think, everyone was always like, put the money in RSPs, put the money in this and that. And it's funny, the more I think about it nowadays, I used to think I had all the answers of how to be stable. Like I looked at people like our parents' age and I'm like, all you had to do is kind of buy a house, get a job that paid you a reasonable pension. And then hopefully you'd own your house when you're like in your 50s. And then you basically, because you bought it at 24, 25, and then that's going to be your nest egg. That's your FU money, so to speak, for the remainder of time. But we're being priced out of that now. I think people need to make a few more aggressive moves and understand things a little bit more deeply. Where you come in, I guess.
I think that it's not even so much about more aggressive moves. I think it's just be educated on inflation, the economy, taking your money and making it work for you so that you can buy the things that you want once it's worked for you. So you got to understand the suck for a minute, you know? So I do coaching calls all the time, and it's like, Joel, how did you get to the level where you're at? Well, I can show you the suck, man, for the last 2-3 years. I've been living under my means for so long, and I've been taking that money and power investing into assets that I truly believe in.
But I
Right.
think in your case, you have to admit at some level, it's also like your hobby too. It's like something you love and enjoy doing.
Correct.
So I think my hobby's skiing. You know, like your
Right.
hobby is doing this.
Yeah, it's become a hobby slash career, like not career, but like lifetime passion goal now of mine. Like I want to educate as many families as I can on, if you make 4,000 and you spend 3,000, that 1,000 is going to do a lot if you put it right here instead of spending it over here, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's it, you know. And basic financial literacy, you know. And but we can get into that another day. We're here to talk about why you're here. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about your crypto journey a little bit. And because I mean, I've been now getting texts from you for like 3 years now on like, bro, Ethereum, Solana, you know, Doge. And, you know, I heard you say earlier in the podcast that, you know, crypto is not so speculative anymore. And I like the fact that I hear you say that, because it means that you're doing your research.
Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit about your crypto journey and where you see the future of crypto as well.
Well, to start, I would say that I wish I had a crystal ball and I could have gone back, because I literally, like most people, they say, oh, 2010, like when Bitcoin was pennies, of like, I didn't even hear the stuff. I heard about it. I actually had the opportunity one time to be paid for a transaction in crypto, like back in 2010. And I was the guy's like, I'll pay you in crypto, and I'm like, or in Bitcoin. And I'm like what? Like, you're gonna give me this thing like it's on my USB drive, and we'll figure it out later. And it would have been like, I think it would have been about $1,500 at the time, but worth the bit. I did the loose math on it. It's like north of like 30 mil. So yeah. I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? So now they say that the first best time to do something lucrative is like at the time, and the second best time is right now if you figure it's gonna. So my crypto journey, that was kind of like the first time I'd heard of, you know, Bitcoin and crypto and so on. And then fast forward to it was about 3 or 4 years ago. We were moving to this place, and I mean I knew before a little bit, but it wasn't that accessible. This is right when like crypto.com's coming out. Binance had just got it started, like these kind of, you know, these portals that would allow you to buy and sell crypto. So I saw it as, you know, I recognized the patterns that I recognized in the weed stock thing, because go back to that, like I really did become really good at the weed stock thing. I knew all the companies. I was really like, I understood speculation. I saw when companies would dump and when they'd pump, and it wasn't for the reasons you thought. So, yeah. And I saw the kind of zeal in the crypto market when it first came about, that I saw that, and I go, this is going to be even cooler, because you're not buying a freaking pot company with 6,000 grow lights. You're buying like a digital token, essentially, you know, to put it very simply, or these projects that are coming out. And then the whole NFT craze came up. So I was like, you know what? I think I went on crypto.com, and it was like, basically you could trickle money in, you know, set your card. And the problem with that was because the credit card companies at the time considered it a scam. So you try to put your card on there, and I figured, yeah, I'll just put my credit card. I'll do like $200 a month and just, you know, just a dollar cost average some Bitcoin. And I already knew what DCA was. So I basically go, I'm going to do this, and every month, boom, get shut down. Like crypto card companies shut your payment down. I was like, shit. So I'm like, is it a scam? And I mean, who knew at the time, right? Like even crypto.com was fairly new.
Yeah.
So I started just putting in like sort of larger chunks, and same thing as the weed stocks. This is the time when like Doge had just come out. What's the other one?
XRP.
Yeah, XRP came out. Like I had a ton of XRP. Like, yeah, I don't even, like, so many that if I had the same amount today, it'd be like life changing. So but the problem was, just like anything else, it's like, you know, when do you sell? When do you take profit? So when I started seeing, you know, double and triple, 300x, 400x, sometimes 1200x profits, and I'm really talking off like a couple $100 or $1,000. I would just sell them. I'd be like, oh yeah, of course. I didn't do that in the weed market in some cases. I got burned a little bit. So I'm like, you know, so I just take my profits, and then also the next day it go up another 70%. So I was like, oh man. So, you know, like in Doge's case, I think I had, I don't know, like 1.3 million Doge at one point or something like that, or more. Yeah. Or it was like I literally, the Ethereum, and I won't go into too much detail of what I hold now. for all kinds of purposes. But I do, you know, I've done well. I bought low. Those fundamental core ones that I've held on to are great. I've watched the market really mature. You know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah, I wish I could have bought a 3 full Bitcoin. I had 2 at one point, like 4 years ago. You know, for far less than what they're at now.
For sure.
And I just sold them. I saw them go up 35%. So my journey with crypto, I don't actively trade or buy much crypto now. I kind of just hold my little nest egg. And you know, what I did love about it, and you know, I'll get into this, is like with the crypto.com, I got the card, as we talked about. You know, it probably wouldn't be my preferred method of storing like a huge amount of Bitcoin now, like on crypto.com, but I loved it because when I was really hopping, easy go out and spend that card. So it was like, that was like my dinner fund, my renovation fund for this place. So in actuality, my investment from there catapulted into my investment on my property, which then made me like real, you know, I won't call it money washing, but it's a fundamental, more valuable investment in my opinion. So it was all good.
Well, and you were probably collecting rewards in crypto.com points in crypto.com coins, which go up in value. So it's not like collecting a point on a credit card where you just get the points.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. I had Crow, like I had a ton of Crow, and just cause I used to transfer to CRO, and then basically it's Crow coin, like the crypto. I basically had tons of Crow, and at one point I think they like doubled. So it was like basically the money that was in my account is now double what it was worth before. So that was just kind of a cool thing.
I have a big bag of crypto.com tokens, and it's no secret. It's sitting almost at a 6-figure dollar figure here.
Yeah,
not dollar figure, but tokens. I got almost 100,000 tokens here, and I have no fear that crypto.com is going to become the mainstream place to bank, buy stocks, crypto, have your debit card, and do everything all at one. And you know, they're going to mature to the valuations of, say, a CIBC or a TD. So
you're seeing this with, like, you know, companies like Tesla. You know, with Tesla's basically is worth the next 4 major car brands in their market cap. They're worth all of them combined, and those car brands have been around in like in Ford's case since 1907.
Correct.
Before, like, this is wild, right? So you're seeing a real disruptive things in the industry now, especially things like crypto.com, where it's, and I did like the ease of usage. I didn't love their fees sometimes, and their sneaky kind of, I won't call it sneaky because it's right there.
Spreads.
Their spreads are a little casino-esque. But it's to put it in that. But I did like the ease of the card. Like, I couldn't believe how easily I could use that card. I'm talking, I bought a riding lawnmower, tapped the card, tapped it like nothing. And I couldn't even imagine if you were like a crypto billionaire, you'd probably just be, you know, tap that for private jets and stuff. Yeah. But we'll see someday. But yeah, I do think that the use case is there. I think if there was going to be any, you know, huge SEC type stuff happen, I think it would have happened already, as we've seen other companies wash out of the market. I think with that many users, we really haven't heard any horror stories yet, which is great, which I think is actually kind of fundamentally, although less regulated, better than a bank. I mean, banks are always getting into problems with liquidity and stuff. So these companies just have it, you know. I don't, and I think we're going to see less and less of this. Like, I have Bitcoin, I have to change it to CAD or some rigmarole way to get to that. I think you're going to see a lot more people, like we saw this week with Pierre Poilievre buying the shawarma with actual coin, which I know you can do. I mean, everyone Venmos now. Venmos or e-transfer. Hey, you want to buy something? Venmo.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we as Nifty Campus, we did our first corporate consult here in Barrie with a barbershop, 8-bit barbershop. They now accept Bitcoin and USDC.
Why not?
So they give you 2 options. They give you an option to do it in the main coin, which is Bitcoin. And if you have already taken profits in your Bitcoin or your other coins in USDC or USDT, then you can pay us in USDC as well. So,
yeah, of course. I think it's going to be, you know, I'm 43 years old, and, you know, coming from 1981, we're kind of and I don't know how you are, pretty close.
I'm 37.
All right, so close enough. Still a baby.
I'm going to be retired. I'm going to be a retired baby this year, bro.
Hey, 100%, man. That's unbelievable. That's congratulations on that too, by the way.
Thank you.
It's like, you know, I just seeing things evolve. You know, I was from the tape player generation, and then it was the CD, and then it was the digital, and then that's Spotify, and then it's just talk to my Alexa, and, you know, shouldn't say that too loud. And then and then basically now, you know, I think the days of, I mean, money's already gone. Paper money's gone. Change is gone, unless you're, you know, going to an antique store or something.
I never touch
it. Yeah, right. Like I mean, yeah, unless I go to the casino or something. But like paper money and stuff's kind of gone the way of the dodo.
Yeah.
Dodo bird, that is. The very rare bird.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody gets that reference. But the basically, I think it's going to be the transition is going to be just as easy as tapping your phone onto another phone. I mean, smartwatch or just something. God forbid, like a microchip in your hand. But I think we're gonna transcend that idea that you have to have dollars, USDC or Canadian dollars, which we found are super, inflation and sort of economic base too. With our dollar is just terrible right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I have a little note here of like, where do you think Canada's heading politically? With the whole, us becoming maybe a U.S. state and all these things. And and then we have a prime minister who stepped down. I know you have a lot of opinion and just you do your research when it comes to these topics. If we were to become a U.S. state, that means our dollar disappears. So to think that a really good dollar can't just disappear, it's ridiculous to think. In my opinion, I don't ever see a Roman dollar out there or talk to a Roman, what I mean? And they were the most powerful nation in the world. So how did we get here, Greg? And where are we going?
All right, I think there's like a lot of pieces to that conversation. We could probably do 20 podcasts, but I think to start, this idea of the 51st state, I'll get to that more later. But it's like, it's comical to me, and it's comical to me that I think it has a lot to do with the fear mongering aspect of the propagandists. I think a lot of people, like Donald Trump, is a guy who says things that are on his mind. He's like my uncle. I got a couple of people that I know in my life like that. Sometimes I'm like that. I just say shit, and I just say shit just to say shit, And when you have a leader like, well, I won't even call him a leader because I don't really consider him. We have a person in politics like Trudeau who's got this schmimey sort of elitist attitude, and he doesn't really, I don't think, has Canada's best interest at heart. He's a very big pushover. When he bullies people with his own political party, Trump's going to smell that on somebody. Trump just doesn't mess around, from the way he pulls people in on his handshakes to the way he's going to do that. And Trump will just say stuff, So in this case, I think, Trump had some points asking for like a more controlled border. We're seeing a lot of fentanyl come from up here, especially through BC, which is, if you're having that many deaths in your country, and we have them too, a lot of Chinese product ending up here. We think about from America to Mexico border being like this porous, cartel members fleeing through every day and whoever else. Honestly, our border is pretty porous too. And with our immigration standards, we're seeing a lot of people go. So somebody like Trump's not going to come to the table and go, hey, I think we need to work together. He's going to say, you know what? I'm going to put 25% tariffs on all your goods, and I'm going to take over your country. And that's just, and for them to blow it up to what it's been. I mean, certainly there's some economic things we have to look at there with the incoming president, but I think it's been blown out of proportion. And I think, when you see people who are like the never Trumps, they're just like, oh, he's going to come in with tanks and this and that. And reality of that is so untrue. We have just as much to trade them. They need us probably just as much as we need them on certain things. But I think moving forward, we need a more effective leader, a more effective communicator. And here I pointed some things out the other day that really kind of bother me. And I mean, I don't disrespect somebody who has another different point of view. If you're liberal, conservative, whatever, and you have some good points. And you're probably not all of it. You're probably some of it. So and I can sit and listen to you again. You can respect you for your opinion. I think that's what we are in a free country. But I think all encompassing what I'm finding and what is my really grinds my gears, so to speak, is that people from, I won't just say the liberal side, but it is a lot, kind of talk down to you, like you're too dumb to know what's good for you. Hey, wait a minute, wait, dummy, listen to the science. Don't ask any questions. Hey, dummy, you know nothing about politics. Oh, that can't possibly. It's this elitist kind of attitude. Of course it's climate change that started the fires. So I think recently we're seeing a lot of that. So it kind of makes me, and I'm a person who likes to get into a good verbal scrap. So it makes me, whether that be on Facebook or in real life, it kind of makes me put back on my haunches. And I think people who are maybe, I can even see that that's what they're doing, that I can see things from their perspective. Whereas, the average person who's fed up with paying too much for groceries, who's got an exorbitant amount of debt, who, is looking forward to their children's, futures and their security. These people are they don't have the time to look from the other person's side. So there's a lot of yelling across the borders, and we're really not getting anything done. But I think what we have to steer away from, and it's not going to happen like this. You're already seeing people aligning Pierre Poilievre with Trump. I'm not going to go so far as to say that I think Pierre Poilievre is going to be this like perfect. I don't like most politicians. I'll put that out there at the start. I think people that get to that height of politics have their own motives and agendas. I think maybe throughout that time, it's 25-year career in politics. Monday, he probably thought, hey, maybe I should be a liberal, but he couldn't anymore because he's going on the conservative track, right? Yeah. And he's just going to do exactly what people want him to do, like, I mean, or what makes sense. Like he'll say one thing about Israel, say another thing about Palestine, just to kind of toe the line. So is he really saying anything, that we could trust? But I just think at the end of the day, where we're going, we need a different leader. I mean, we can't have the same sanctimonious douche hat, sorry to use a term like that we have now.
No, you're free to speak. You're free to speak how you want, man. This is your.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to come and arrest me yet, unless we have 8 more years of Trudeau. But I'm hopeful. Like in essence, I'm hopeful. Like in America, I was watching that. Trump. Like who knew we'd be at a point where Donald Trump would be coming back for a second term, or even running for president at all, right? Like it's all like a big comedy to me in a way, and probably more because I'm not affected by it. But I can get behind somebody who kind of steps outside the political establishment, who looks different, who says things differently, who doesn't look like a puppet, doesn't look like a marionette. Like go so far as his Rosie O'Donnell comments, which are hilarious, frankly. He's a comedian, but
I love following Donald Trump's Twitter. He's the funniest guy on Twitter, in my opinion. But, yeah.
He posted one yesterday, and it was like, I guess him and Barack Obama were together at Joe Carter, the president who just passed away, ex-president, and he's there and they're laughing. But he put like the voiceover, and he's like, I don't think Hillary still likes me, like Panther, and it's got like her voice, like, ha ha, Donald Trump's real, and he put this like, this is the incoming president. Like I
saw the same one, but it has a view of Kamala up front, and she looks back at them talking, and it's like when you see your old golf partner finding a new golf partner.
he goes, I think she's off the wagon again, and then you see Barack Obama, like I think he's like, it's totally not their voices.
Yeah,
I was like, this is the incoming president. I'd say. So I go, but what I was happy about. It was a democratically fair election, I think. I mean, if it wasn't, obviously the blue side would be preaching bloody murder, screaming bloody murder. So I think, and you saw that it was an overwhelming victory.
I called Donald Trump coming president before 2 years ago, and I was like all on it. I was like, this guy's gonna win. It's a no joke.
Yeah. Like
what I didn't see coming was he was going to be the next crypto president of the world.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's twofold. I think it's cool that's sort of the sentiment, and we did see that big increase this year, and that when you have a president of the largest economy in the world, essentially the most robust economy in the world, who's looking at that as something you might want to invest in with the treasury funds, it's bullish, to say the least. So yeah, 100%. And I think he's someone that can see the value in that. But yeah, so like for my American friends, I'm happy. If that's what they wanted, I'm happy. And if that's how it was democratically decided, I think, what I'm tired of, and I was saying this to my therapist the other day, and everyone should have a therapist, but mine's great. Shout out to Rachel. So basically, I'm talking to my therapist the other day, and I said, you know what? I've realized at like just 43 years old, my most bothersome thing is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
I go, I don't care if you have a view. If your view is that, trans people should be able to go in girls' bathrooms, whatever. I don't care if your view is, abortion rights or whatever, which I have no real say in, no real interest in, really. I mean, I understand women's interest in, or any kind of huge social position. But it's like,
we'll do another podcast, Greg, when I'm no longer in the Canadian Forces, and we'll talk about those topics. Okay.
Well, it's like hypocrisy is like, it's like, I find a lot of the things that the Democrats and in our country, the liberals are focused on are very like, and I'll use their own words, they're very privileged things to be able to worry about when some people are starving. Like we'll talk about climate change and how much is affected by that, but paying a carbon tax isn't going to solve climate change. We already know that's not going to work. All it does, you think the person who's freaking got 4 kids, who a couple of years ago could just barely afford to get by, but now is just in this insurmountable debt crush, right? Or their kids aren't going to go to college. They're 4 months behind on their rent. Do you think they give a flying rat's ass about how the temperature went up 1 degree in the last 1,000 years? And these are the same people going, you white privileged person with your privilege. Like, it's like, that's such hypocrisy. Don't hypocrisy to me. If you're going to do something to me, or you're going to say something to me, or it's your position, don't do the same exact thing you're complaining about. And I just see so much of it now on kind of both sides, but I do see it so much more on what we'll call the left. I hate using that term, but it's just this hypocrisy nowadays, like the, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. And being apologetic for things like this privilege illusion that really, man, the fact that you can worry about such small concerns.
Yeah, I'm with you on the hypocrisy thing too. And I'm always like, dude, just stay consistent, stay true to who you are, and don't change with the wind, and don't push your, ideologies on me. And for me, that's what my biggest issue is with the term left is you don't see someone on the right sitting there constantly trying to shove down your throat their views and morals and values. They're pretty confident in who they are. They show up, most of them go to church, and they're just like, I'm trying to grow my family, and just, I don't want to be involved in most of these things that you're talking about, and that's kind of where, I sit, and I love everyone, but you're not going to push your ideologies on me, and I've had to dig deep as a man, with a Christian wife at home, over the last few years. And do you want to be a part of the problem, or do you want to be a part of the solution? And, we've had those conversations, you and I, as a man, and, and that comes into like my next big question for you. Like, how do you deal with everything that goes on in our society right now as a man, as a father who's trying to educate and lead his family? Because I see how well you do that, man, and you do lead your family well, and you have a pretty happy ecosystem going on in your life. So
yeah, I think anybody who knows me closely knows I like to go on Instagram, and I post a lot of my life, and it kind of, this was foreign to me growing up, but having social media presence, but don't let that fool you. I think in today's day, if you strictly looked at what I'm doing from a social media aspect, my life looks like the life of Riley, and it really is. I'm in the upper 1%, and we'll talk about this later, what I think true wealth is, but I have time, I have love in my life, I have hobbies and interests that I enjoy doing, and I have the financial ability to do them. So I think those are really important things. How am I navigating things? Probably like I'm falling down a hill, but sometimes I'm kind of, when you run down a hill as a kid, you kind of fall and you get yourself running. I'm kind of like that. Like, I find myself, like, every morning, for example, I got up this morning and I'm outside with my coffee, and I always go out, and I just found somebody said you should go out and like see some natural sunlight in the morning. So I do that, my one health thing in the morning. And I'm out there, and I'm literally scrolling my phone. And I'm just like, I'm literally bent over. It's like -8, right? And I'm like, it's like snowing, and I'm scrolling my phone, and I'm just like, this person says this, Trump indictments, Trump says this, a plane crash in Indonesia, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I haven't even been awake for 30 minutes, and I'm just like I don't think people were ever meant to take in as much. Like, I'm not an empathetic person, as it were. I'm not like a bleeding heart empath. Like somebody like my wife is very empathetic. Like, she literally feels for everyone. I would find how hard, being the kind of inquisitive mind I have, to be well read and see everything that's going on in the world, that interest, but also having that empathetic heart. Like, it probably just crushes people.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, like, I'm starting to notice, I'm like, what I'm presenting to the world on my social media and what the actuality of my life is, it's two totally different things. It's like, I'm a persona. It's like I'm Brad Pitt in a movie, and I go, there's like very few people know like any of my things that are going on in my life that are difficult, some of which we talked about. But so how am I dealing with, it's like that. It's like I'm running down a hill and I'm stumbling and I'm getting back up and I'm figuring it out. And every day I wake up with a bit of a different mind. I wake up with a mind of like conservation, and other days I make up with like an effort mind where I just go, spend some money that day because I don't figure I'm going to live that much longer. It's like I'm the great song, like, I'm a million different people from one day to the next. So I'm kind of like that, and some days I'm like, do I like doing the renovations I'm doing? Other days I'm like, you could not pay me to go out and do another renovation. Like, it's
So when's my tea time?
Right. I think more. Yeah. And as I get, I'm starting to fill my boat with golfing, started this year, which we could probably talk about another podcast, but being a pretty pro golfer yourself, like I fill my days with skiing and then this and that. And I start to decide, like, well, now I'm addicted to this extra money I'm making in a spending sense, in an economic sense. But then I'm like, well, hell, I didn't need it before, but I had all these other things I want to do. So do I go golfing or skiing or work or whatever, or do I take a week off? And it's just, and sometimes I'm completely doom and gloom. Like, I'm like, hell, the whole world just seems so effed up. And why is everything so expensive? Why is I'm like just waiting for the next shoe to drop of some expensive thing I have to pay for on my house or something. Or I'm really like, I'm just going to sit here and meditate, put some incense and just freaking forget about who needs money.
All day.
Just wear linen and shit around. So I'm like, I'm kind of like I'm a lot of different people. So I think if I'm navigating it, like there's all kinds of things, I have a son who's 18. He's just going off into the world. And I just, you think you're going to imprint some amazing wisdom in your kids, no matter how much time you spend with them. And it's completely lost on me how much influence the world and my friends and like things like, even like hip hop or whatever, just culture stuff had when I was a kid. Whereas like he is just like inundated with social media where they're actually telling you what to be. And that's the difference. Like when I was a kid, I listened to the Wu-Tang Clan. Maybe I still wearing baggier pants and like wearing my hat backwards. Right? It was like the worst smoking weed. This is like whatever.
Dude, I grew up on R. Kelly, so I chased girls around the streets and schoolyards my whole life.
Never urinated on anyone.
No, I promise.
Not yet.
Nice joke. I like it.
Not yet.
Yeah. Shout out to R. Kelly.
R. Kelly. Like I look at him, and then I have a daughter who's 12 now, and I just in her case, she was like maybe less than 18 months ago. She was like my little baby, she seemed like a toddler to me. And now she's, doing these little TikTok things and all of her friends, like she's concerned with hair and makeup and all this stuff. And I just go, I really wish that I could, you're so worried for them, I'm like, I'm so worried. Like when she goes to school, first day of school, new grade, I'm like, man, I hope everyone likes her. And I, navigating that as a dad, navigating like, what the hell is she going to do? I hope she has something awesome to do for a job that's not slavery. It's not working in some cubicle just because she has to pay the bills. But then I'm like, maybe that slavery job's what teaches her that she doesn't like the slavery job. It's just, there's no, and the more I think of what advice I'd give people on how to do things, the less I think I know about how to give advice about how to do things. Because it depends on the day. Ask me on a Tuesday. Ask me on a Wednesday. Ask me after I just had a stressful week or a free week. We don't need anything. So. But I feel like we could do like 100 of these podcasts.
Of course. Right?
Like we've
and this is why I really wanted to get you on here because we share similar visions, but we have similar experiences, and we can go off on topics but I do think you have empathy in some places. You've helped me through quite a few battles of my own, going through transitioning through, finding out that I was being released medically as well, and also going through some family court struggles. You helped me through that too. So, you don't say you don't have empathy. I think you have it where you want to give it to the people that you feel like deserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I really have a hard time helping someone who won't help themselves. And that's not to say some people don't start from a position of being like basically helpless and just completely effed up. And not in your case, it's a much different situation. But I've had people, like come to me just completely effed up on everything. And you're like, you can't really expect them to be like, help yourself, pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah. But just do this, young man.
Yeah, exactly. Do exactly what I said Wednesday. He's like, that's what you said on Friday.
Yeah, but you asked Friday, Greg. You didn't ask Wednesday, Greg.
You said to burn your shoes and buy crypto. I was like, but yeah, I was like, I would help somebody almost all the time who will help themselves. And I mean, obviously, the more I know somebody, the more I do that. So I think I look back and I think about my motives for things, whether they be like, why do I help people? Why am I gentlemanly in some ways? Why does this, I think the older I get, in both ways, I envy somebody who doesn't do this. I kind of wish I was a person not to get too much off topic. I read a study the other day that said basically there's somewhere around like 30% of the population has no inner dialogue.
Right.
Like NPC shit. Like they literally don't have I talk to myself all day in my head. I'm constantly talking in my head. I don't know what your head sounds like to you, but it's like, now I'm going to get a tomato out.
Busy.
Good. Right? And I think that's the marker of somebody who can, really make things happen. And that's that inquisitive, relentless mind. But out there's like 30% of people just don't even have that thing in their head. Right. So I envy that of some people. But as I get older, it's not like my mind slowed down. I always figured it was like an old thing, like an old dog thing or our parents' thing where you could kind of sit on the couch and, no offense to my parents, drool, just think about nothing all day. Like, I cut the lawn today and then I knitted my socks. I thought I'd slow down, but I am just getting more and more interested in not so much just things of the world. I look at other outwardly things to glean information that I can use inwardly. I try to put context to things that I'm thinking. So I'm asking why a lot now in my own mind. Always like, why do I think this? If I have a reaction or an emotion again towards somebody else, I start thinking, why do they think like this? Why are they like this? What thing? And it's opened up a catastrophic exponential universe of opportunities and ideas, but it's also like it's tiring, and it's just made me realize that I have no answers for anything. There's a why within the why within the why.
For me, the biggest thing that I've had to overcome is tell myself repeatedly that most people don't think like me and most people don't have a mind like me. So when I'm in a room and I'm like, why are you guys just not getting it? Like, why do you live your life this way? Like, the answer is smacking at you right in the face, bro. Like, it's right there. Just grab it, and it's just like, they don't think like you, man. So like, and you can't force anyone to think like you. I think you can just, if you're that person who wants to help others and see change, you just have to inspire and hope the right people follow. Kind of like Jesus did, over 2,000 years ago. Just walked around and helped out prostitutes and homeless people. Sound like a good gig to me. Yeah.
Sounds terrible. Was it winter or summer?
Who cares? You just do it in the. You know what I mean?
It's funny. Like I used to look at, like, I was diagnosed with anxiety. I guess like that's a general term, and the more I've gotten past that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this much, but as like the more I've kind of gotten on the other side of that, understanding my anxiety, I start to think like, well, the world's an anxiety place, and if you don't have a bit of anxiety, you're probably not trying hard enough.
Right. I always tell people it's an occupational hazard to have anxiety just being in this world. So if you can't deal with a little bit of it, like, don't step outside your house, wear a helmet when you leave the house. I don't know.
Like, what is the first thing when you see anxiety pop up? Like, you just like write it on a Bristol board. It's like, it's a negative connotation, right? Like, stress is a negative connotation. Like, this is it's all negative. But I'm like, you know what? My anxiety mind, which I used to like think, oh God, why can't you just stop worrying about this birthday party next week and how well you're going to plan it, or whatever it may be, or what time to get up tomorrow morning to do something on your car. It's like, now I look at it and I go, I don't get to have that mind, or like my really, really good, awesome mind, which, is ingenious and it's creative and it's inquisitive and it's cunning and it's a good planner and it figures things out 10 steps before they can happen. I don't get to have that mind without paying the dividend of that mind also annoying me sometimes, and maybe not messing with other people, right? So I think you just kind of got to do your own thing. And I see, when you start looking at something like anxiety, which is like depression or stress or anything else that originally you could put a bad connotation on, it's something you can look at and go, when it becomes like your worst quality becomes your strength and something you appreciate, that's like, no one can hurt you then.
I had that moment last year in my life. I think we talked about it a few times on phone calls, and I had those moments where I was like, yeah, I'm not, my morals and values are sound. No one's changing those of me. I'm not, I respect everyone and I love everyone, but I'm going to place, my game is going to be played elsewhere,
For sure. I think like recently I've been going through some stuff with the court stuff with my ex, and I don't want to get into that too much on here, but it's I think I don't think so. If somebody, these situations come up and you start to think of them perspective of like, I'm a victim, I'm being victimized by somebody else and they're really trying to shit on me or whatever, which I don't necessarily think. I really don't understand some of the things, like maybe in somebody else's perspective or their mindset, but I'm grateful that I understand that I don't really understand those things, but I think like, it's the way you like internalize those things. Like I could say, oh yeah, somebody's victimizing me. I become I'm like that victim mentality, right? I think in this day and age, it's like, honestly, that's probably the lowest. I was saying to my therapist again, which I will, to anyone listening, having a therapist like a therapist you talk to on a semi-weekly basis. And I've done this since about 2016, 2015. The best, I've come up, it's made me the kind of person, and whether this is through like cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever, basically the ability to go back and come up with my own answers for most things. The misnomer is you're going to see a therapist, they're going to tell you all the things you should do better and how to do them. Realistically, it's just a bipartisan person you're talking to. Right. And once you come to that, you know, when you start talking to them in a particular week, like, I've done this, this is why I'm doing this, and so on and so forth. So I'll finish sort of with this, is that what I've come down to understand is that the lowest possible form of my mental state is thinking I'm a victim of anything.
Right.
It may be true. Maybe some unfair things are occurring to me. Right. Sure. But it's the way I internalize those things, and I'm not saying get up like the book of Stoicism would be like bang your chest, like, I love when hardship comes. I don't love when hardship comes. I wish it would be a lot easier. But if I sit there and I start thinking I'm a victim in any way, whatever that manifests to be, it's my lowest emotion. So at that point,
it probably brings you to your lowest moments, and
well, that's rock bottom for me. I don't care. It doesn't have to be somewhere laying on a street corner with a freaking paper bag and a bottle in my hand, which I've never been, by the way. But that's not rock bottom for me. Rock bottom is anytime I start feeling like a victim. I start feeling like a victim of Justin Trudeau or taxes or inflation or anything. Right? It's like. But because it's the lowest, okay, you're a victim. Now what?
Yeah.
But it's become like a really good mechanism for me when I start smelling that familiar like comfort of victimhood. I just immediately push it another direction. So I think there's something to tap into there for sure.
Yeah.
But,
I can agree with you on having a therapist and things like this. I have a therapist that I use on a weekly basis, and I also have a performance coach that keeps me accountable on the goals and performances that I want to have, and that coach charges me more than most make in a year. So you know what I mean? But it's perspectives. When you get to a certain level and a certain level and a certain level, you have money to spend on education, on your health, your body, all these different things, right? So I'm going to ask you a question to round this all up. We've talked about a lot of great topics, and I think we're going to do a part 2. But what does wealth and success mean to Greg?
Well, that's another evolving concept for me. It's been, over my entire life. I didn't grow up when I was young with a lot of money, but my mom, respect to her, always had what I needed. I like to spend. Sure. Fuck, it's fun. Fun tickets, as we've talked about before. I love spending. I like going out, having nice dinners, having nice clothes, having nice things to drive, having a nice house. And I used to think that was wealth. I think wealth and financial security wise, it's, I'm speaking from a position of I have that, I have that monthly guarantee, which a lot of people don't. So me commenting on it's probably different from somebody who works a minimum wage job. But I think, the older I get, I started to see things like that money can't buy. And for me, it's like money doesn't, if I was to tell my kids something, I'd say money doesn't mean everything in the world. If you're not happy with $1, chances are $1 million's not going to make you happy. But it sure as shit's going to be a lot better to figure out what makes you happy. It's like you never, you've never seen somebody feeling kind of sad while they're on a Sea-Doo. Right? So I think in my case that is true. So definitely making money and having that money to spend, and you've made it, and you have that the ability to have some extravagance, great. I like it. It's one of the things I enjoy. But secondly, real true wealth, I think a commodity that we underestimate and we don't put much of a value on right now, more than Bitcoin, more than the US dollar, it's time. Having time to do what you want to do.
Right.
This idea of the 40-hour grind work week, I think is BS. I think if you're trying to strive for great wealth and great success, I think you'll find it's something that pays you enough to do the things you want to do. Hopefully you love that pursuit. But I think the second part of that is to have the time to do, my greatest wealth isn't getting up and I see $1 million in my bank account. It's getting up in the morning and going, fuck, my wife's already got up. She's answered 4 emails. I'm like, and I still get up early. I'm like, look, no one's going to tell me what to do today. I'm going to go skiing or golf, or I'm going to do the work I do, So but the other thing too is I'm not shirking my work. I love going to do the stuff I do. I don't have to. You know, but not having to do things you don't want to do and having the time. Like I squander so much time too. It's like spending money, right? I squander time. I'll binge watch a series on a Sunday afternoon and 5 hours is gone. You know, you're like, but I think time is the greatest commodity we can have, more valuable than money. But I think things like money and financial success give us the opportunities to find the things we like.
I agree.
So,
all right,
man. Thank you very much, man. This has been great.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks for your service to this country. Thanks for coming on this podcast with me, and also just being a good friend, man. Over the years, it's been great.
Got you, buddy. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.